was going to tell you guys earlier that I was all thinking over there that it's going to be a whole lot easier to make calls to try to win the Daytona 500 in a couple of weeks than it's going to be to stand up here and do this tonight. It's a lot easier to do it in front of the camera than it is in front of 200 or 500 people, I guess. And I want to thank Dick Bergen for calling and asking me to do this. I think I want to thank you. Maybe I don't want to thank you. But I'm going to do a little bit different. I really kind of want to tell about Stub Fadden and what he's meant to my career and what he's meant to a lot of people's career throughout racing. You guys can read most of the things that he's done in racing in the brochure. My first memory of Stub was in about 1978. I was fortunate enough to be friends with his grandson. He and I were best friends growing up, still are probably best friends today. And unless I do a real lousy job of this speech, and he might take me off the list. But anyway, in 1978, I can remember I went to the racetrack with Stub. He had an old blue bus, and it was all of his friends and family that he took to the racetrack to help him. His son Alvin was his crew chief for forever. And then he later went on to be his sponsor hunter and just jack of all trades. So I went over there to Thunder Road that day, rode in the bus with him, and he dropped me off out there at the front gate and went up and sat in the turn one grandstands by myself. Michael actually didn't go to that race. He was at a baseball game, Babe Ruth game, and I was 10 years old. And I can still remember him winning that race that night against Dave Dion. It was the year that they won. There was 3 races held that year at that racetrack, and he won all 3 of them. Went on to win the championship. But Dave Dion and him had a long-standing rivalry throughout his career, and just to be there and watch that, and then through the years seeing all the different things that he did against Dave and the competition that he had was neat. The proudest thing for me is being a part of inducting a man who not only had a great career on the racetrack, but has helped to shape so many other people's careers. He was somebody that when he went to the racetrack, I'm a competitive type individual that if somebody comes over and wants a little bit of, what right front spring you got in the car, I'm probably not going to tell them the truth. But Stubby would always shoot him straight. As I got older, I'm not sure that I really appreciated that much because we probably lost races that we might have won against somebody. But nonetheless, my deal was if you could get rid of some competition, the less competition you had at the racetrack, the better off you were going to be. But Jamie Obie was a young guy, probably in about 80 or 81. He came to the racetrack and started racing a little bit, and he'd run out of money, blew up somewhere, and Jamie's told me this story many times. Stub called him up and told him to come over and get a motor from him. And Stub, was a mechanic. He had his own auto repair center, so he built engines on his own, and he probably put one together for Jamie on the side. But Jamie didn't want any part of it, and Stub didn't want no part of him telling him that he wasn't going to come and get the motor because Jamie didn't have enough money to pay for it, but Stub didn't care. He wanted the young kid to come back to the racetrack and run again. And, so that's another little story of a guy that he went on to be a 3-time Busch Grand National champion that, Stub didn't ever have to help the guy. I mean, I would have just swept him aside and said, that's one less guy I got to race against. But throughout Stub's deal, really he had a lot of trials and tribulations, I'd say, because between Michael and myself, when Michael was just a little kid, why Stub never ran him off or something after he broke the bubble bouncer trying to get the bubble out of the middle of it, I'm not really sure. But the fact that he did that probably made it where it was easier for him to put up with me all the years. But that was just the way Stub was. There was different drivers that came on in the series. There was rookies. This guy named Randy McDonald came in from Oshawa, Ontario. And he started, I think it was 85 that he competed against us, competed for Rookie of the Year on the Coors Tour, the Busch Noah. And I remember one week he'd been to the shop, Stub let him use the race shop, he'd been there all week working on his car, and we went to Seekonk that weekend, and Stub was leading the race as it turned out. Back in these early years, by the way, I'm going to jump around a lot here, as you can tell. I was just a little crew member on the car and stuff helping out. And but I was a digger and a fighter. I'm always wanting to win, and always irritated when somebody did something that cost Stub a win. So we'd gone and Stub had let him use the shop and done all these things for him. We got to the racetrack and Stub was leading the race. There was probably 10 laps to go. Second place was quite a ways back. He got to Randy McDonald to lap him, and I mean, to me, all hell broke loose. We didn't get by him, and we didn't end up winning the race. The guy in second did, and I can remember Alvin. You know, he's a redhead, and he was mad. I mean, he was fit to be tied. I didn't think we'd ever let Randy back in the shop again, but Stub, you know, he just shrugged it off, and you know, the kid came back to the shop a couple weeks later, and I'm sure off to the side, the Stub sat down and had a conversation with the kid, and probably told him what his thoughts were. But that's where Stub was unique. He really didn't ever tell. You know, I never really got much of a feeling on, you know, where his mindset was, because he kept it all inside. He really didn't say a whole lot to many people, and probably Charlotte took all the grief from him. But so I wanted to list off a couple of the guys, you know, that he had helped along the way. Tommy Rosati, who was the youngest Oxford 250 winner, was somebody that when he came to the racetrack, Stub always took the time to talk to. Randy LaJoy, two-time Busch Cell champion, that when he came to the Busch North Series back in the early 80s, he brought Bob Johnson along with him, who wasn't, you know, exactly the friendliest guy, which I have great admiration for Bob. But Stub talked to Randy a lot, you know. Dana Patton, Chuck Bound, two-time Busch Cell champion, and another local racer that I wanted to talk about that lived in town was Brad Kennedy. And why Stub is still friends with him is only because Stub has persevered, you know, and Brad, because Alvin, Stub's son, got involved in trying to help manage Brad's, you know, racing endeavors a little bit. Brad didn't have a whole lot of money, and Stub tried to help him all the time. And Alvin had this big deal one year that they were gonna make enough money to race all year long for Brad, and he wanted Brad to go to Dover, Delaware. Brad only had one car, only had one motor. You know, didn't think that was a good idea. Like I said, Stub doesn't say a whole lot, so I don't think he thought it was a very good idea, but he trusted his son's, you know, sense, or in this case, maybe lack of sense, but most of the time, Alvin made very good decisions. And so anyway, they went to Brad. He talked Brad. Brad didn't think it was a good idea, but he talked him into going. So off they went to Dover, Delaware. Well, they got down there, and Brad goes out in practice and blows up. So then he's got to go get another motor. He puts another motor in. They go and run the race. I don't think he, you know, made many laps in the race, but it wasn't a very profitable day. Nevertheless, so they load up to go home. Brad's thinking, well, you know, he's in the hole, whatever he's in the hole, a lot of money probably. It wasn't profitable. And heading up the highway, and now the hauler breaks down. So now Brad's sitting beside the road, and he's got, you know, him and his buddy sitting there. And Alvin, he drives by, never sees Brad. Stub goes by, he never sees Brad. Now Brad's got to run a rider truck to get home. So there's been things that Michael and myself and Alvin have done to cause Stub not to have as many friends in racing, but somewhere he's persevered over all that. Funny story about Stub is that you know, he was the type of guy on the racetrack that, you know, he raced you real clean. I mean, I never saw him take anybody out, much as I wanted him to take somebody out. And the only time and I wasn't there to witness it, but through all the things that had gone on, I guess, through the people that had come to the shop and he'd let them borrow something and, you know, never went his way, it didn't seem like. He finally was in Laval, Canada one night, and I believe it was where it was, somebody will probably correct me, and this guy named Alan Whipple, Stub was leading the race, and Whipple took him out. And I don't know where Stub ended up finishing. I wasn't fortunate enough to be there, but came back and heard enough stories from Alvin, and, you know, I mean, Alvin was just fit to be tied. And so they went to Claremont the next week, which was Whipple's home racetrack. And I think somewhere along the way, Stub had made up his mind that he was, you know, finally going to get pay somebody back for something over the years. It just all this is built up. And so Stub was out there running, and he saw that number one yellow car come up beside him, and it was Alan Whipple. So he spun him out. Stub never did a good job of spinning anybody out. He spun himself out, I think, too. And so, I mean, you know, Stub, he's probably elated. I'm just guessing on this part. He's probably, you know, I finally got somebody, you know. And he gets into the garage area afterwards, and here comes Punky Karen after him. And of course, Alvin, you know, I don't know whether Alvin realized what had gone on either, but somewhere during the middle of this race, Alan Whipple had gotten sick. He pulled into the pits, and Punky Karen got in the car. And so that kind of ended Stub from ever, you know, paying anybody back for anything, I think. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, I just wanted to say that the biggest thing that that Stub was he was a family man. I mean, everybody that raced with him was his friends or his family. His wife was his scorer forever. I remember when she was sick in the hospital. It was for a couple of years or something. I remember as just a little kid, we'd drive down there 2 or 3 nights a week, and it was real difficult. I could tell on him back then to go to the racetrack without Charlotte there, because she'd always been there through everything he'd ever done. He had his brothers, his nephews, volunteers. They all came, weekly. His daughter Charlene, her son is Michael. And she's brought the grandkids and her kids and everybody to the racetrack, so it's always been a family affair for him. And I think that that's the thing that transcends for me, is that is the values that he's shown myself, shown Mike Olson, is what's been able to make me be able to go on and have some sort of a career in racing. Young people aren't always fortunate to have somebody that shows those types of values. And the respect that he has for the other competitors on the racetrack. I came back in 1991 to crew chief him, moved back from North Carolina, and I can assure you that the fondest days, I tell people all the time, the best days I've ever had was winning races with him. We were fortunate enough, he was 61 years old, I believe is the number, and getting back to Dave Dion, Dave Dion was leading the race at Lee, New Hampshire, in 1994, and Stub passed him with about 30 laps to go to win the race, a 200-lap race at age 61. That same year, he also passed Robbie Crouch to win the race, a 200-lap race in Jennerstown. And I brought those two names up because they're guys that are respected obviously and throughout racing. Robbie Crouch, 6-time champion, but at age 61, to have the perseverance and the stamina and the desire to keep racing and going out and competing like that was a thrill for me to continue to be a part of. And anything I've ever done or will ever continue to do in racing will never be any more special than the wins that I had with him at those races. His resume, like I said, over 1,000 feature starts, 230 wins, 1976 Don McTavish Award, 2-time Milk Bowl winner, New England 200 and 300 winner, track champion at Thunder Road, Catamount, Mont Laurier, 3-time Sportsmanship Award winner of the Triple Crown, Nels Corner, Ontario, the 250 against Junior Hanley and some strong competition. Today, Stub works at races at White Mountain Motorsports Park with his grandson Todd, and all the local racers, they come to him just as they did in 1961 when he used to go and weld up their cars, and that's how he got into starting racing. Now they come to him over there to ask for little tips on the side, so he's helping Todd, but he's helping Todd's competition, so it still goes the same way. But the respect that he has, from all the competitors, Bobby Dragon, Dick McCabe, everybody, he'd not have nearly the respect, today from as many as he has the respect from, had he raced any differently on the racetrack. And I think that's a tribute to him and to a lot of people to look up and, think that when you get older, you want to look back and say you're respected. I mean, you could win 5 or 6 more races, but if you're not respected doing it, then it's not as much fun in the end. So, without further ado, today we induct a man who not only helped to shape the past of racing, but because of his off-track qualities, he continues to be a part of shaping the futures of many talented racers. A man who has given far more to this great sport than what he took from it. I'm honored to be part of this today. I'm honored to be here today, a part of this great day. Stub Fadden.
I don't think I want to tell you when you
That was the one bonus that I knew him coming after me, I couldn't screw my speech up to your head.
Besides, he's probably one of the guys that wanted to keep the thing short so he wouldn't miss his airplane. Nevertheless, I was quite surprised. I had no idea Frank was going to be here. I thought Berger was going to introduce me because he's the guy that said he'd been digging in my past. So I was afraid he was going to. And, I was going to tell Charlotte, don't believe everything he said. So I was real surprised today to walk in and meet Frankie on the way in because I had no idea that he was going to be here. I'm terrifically honored to be here. As a race car driver, you struck in that seat, you struck the belts, and you take the parade lap, and you're ready for the green. And man, you're all relaxed. Man, when you stand up here in front of 400 or 500 people, it's a different deal. I think they all would tell you that. Anyhow, Thanks for all the nice things you said, Frank. Charlotte, I told you good things are going to come out of racing. This is a great meal we had here. It was by far better than the muscatoli and half-fried chicken up the St. Johnsbury Grain Summit. As racing started, as we started out racing, I say we, my family, that'd be Charlene, my daughter, who's never did like racing, still don't, but got two boys that are into racing, and my son Alvin, and of course my wife Charlotte, and that was our racing family. Now today I got 16 of the immediate family here, besides 4 great grandchildren at home, and one Amy's either son or daughter who's almost here, so I'm going to have 5 great-grandchildren in the clan, so I guess, I've met a lot of great people, a lot of friends. I know a lot of people here, a lot of people I don't know, but racing's been good to us, good to me. I don't know that in my day that I'd ever put any bread on the table, but I don't think it took any off of me either, so we had a pretty good balance, had a great life, and enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.